recognize Mr. Estes for 5 minutes to inquire.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman and Ranking Member Kelly, and thank you to all of our witnesses for joining us today. You know, my colleagues across the aisle frequently refer to their record-breaking spending as good investment. But as inflation hits a 40-year high and our nation tops $30 trillion in debt, I think it's clear that our spending strategy is anything but a sound investment for taxpayers. As every economist knows, the definition of inflation is just too much money chasing the same amount of goods. You know, bills like their partisan infrastructure legislation are packed full of special interest handouts to many left-wing groups or donors who masquerade as helping average Americans. Billions in subsidies that will allow millionaires in California to write off their new electric car aren't going to help working families in Kansas. It's also been recently reported that the small percentage of the infrastructure bill that was supposed to go towards roads and bridges might not even be used for that. The Wall Street Journal has reported that a memo from the Biden Department of Transportation calls for projects to be deprioritized, which quote, adds new general purpose travel lanes serving single occupancy vehicles. Infrastructure spending sure seems like it will only go towards radical projects more than roads and bridges. How can trillions of dollars in federal infrastructure spending that won't go to expanding roads and bridges be a good investment for my constituents in Kansas? When you add in the Biden administration's broken energy policies, it has created the highest gasoline prices in 8 years to the trillions of dollars in spending that has caused inflation to soar, it's no wonder why Americans are fed up with Washington, D.C. We're tired of so many in Washington who are treating our mounting debt like their personal credit card, who don't really care that there's no end in sight for their spending and debt accumulation and when it will stop. Mr. McClymans, we know that the 7.5% increase in consumer goods is hurting American families and workers. Besides the price of fuel, what other goods and services has hurt your business and your workers?
Well, virtually everything's gone up. I mean, parts for the trucks, to buy a new truck today, they've gone up more than I've ever seen in 45 years that I've been doing this. Our trailers, everything has gone up, and you can't get parts. I mean, there's stuff that we're waiting on parts for 3 and 4 months. So we have trucks down, and we got to write the manufacturer with a VIN number to even get on the list to get the new ones. It's a real deal. It's been a real challenge.
Is that prohibiting you from actually providing the goods and services that you do to your customers?
Well, between that and the driver shortage, I mean, we're probably down 40 or 50 drivers. We're actively looking for drivers, laborers, welders, mechanics every day. They're hard to find.
Yeah, and it really is. I mean, if you don't have the wrong policies coming out of Washington, D.C., it's really going to have that negative impact that we're seeing in terms of the higher prices and lack of ability for workers to get out and be involved in that. You know, I'm a big advocate for good, legitimate spending for infrastructure. I mean, that's going to be a good investment, but just spending money on special interest projects and giveaway is a terrible use of the taxpayer money. You know, as elected representatives, we should be responsible to be good stewards for the taxpayers' money, and I want to make sure that we implement policies that actually do that. So, Mr. Chairman, I yield back.